Through a journey, Lin Juefei arrived at the end of the Eastern Han dynasty. Born in a turbulent era, he thought it was good to have enough to eat and drink. In order to have enough to eat, he came to the logistics camp. But gradually, he realized that these guys in the logistics camp were not ordinary. Old Chow. Brother Lin, what do you think of the Battle of Guandu? Old Sun. Brother Lin, when I ask, it's just a question. What does it mean to build military and civilian farms, promote agriculture, and cultivate to accumulate military funds? How does it work specifically? Lao Gua. Cough, 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 brother, do you still have that cold medicine? I feel much better now. Old Su. Brother Lin. Your military martial arts are really fierce. I know the whole army. Lin Juefei said, don't ask, can't you keep a low profile? Please don't keep boasting, okay? Main characters. Lin Juefei, Chao Linger. Keywords of the novel. I am not a strategist in the Three Kingdoms. No pop-ups, I am not a strategist in the Three Kingdoms. Download the full text of TXT. I am not a strategist in the Three Kingdoms. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Teenagers with Forks. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The cold wind blows and the cold moon dissolves. In Shuzhou in December, there is a clear coolness in the night. There was a tense atmosphere throughout Cao Cao's camp, as Liu Bei retreated to defend the city of Shepi. Cao Cao was unable to attack for a long time, and it was at a time when the entire army was scratching their heads. Su Chu didn't have these troubles, he just felt hungry. Recently, everyone has been worried about the stalemate of the battle situation. The Lord ordered us to eat together at the camp at night, but it seems that everyone has no appetite for food. He is also embarrassed to eat more, so he has to sneak to the kitchen at night to find something to fill his stomach. The kitchen was still lit, and he was about to touch the roasted chicken on the table when a greasy hand next to him covered his thick palm. Who's so bold? How dare you come to the kitchen to steal something to eat? Su Chu looked up and saw a handsome and skinny young man dressed up as a cook. He held wine in his left hand and pressed the chicken in Su Chu's hand on top with his right hand, with oil dripping from his mouth. Su Chu was originally startled, but when he saw that this young man was just a small cook, he suddenly felt relieved and smiled heartily. It's me. Why don't you know him anymore? The young man wiped his mouth before seriously examining the person in front of him. Damn it, he's 5 big and 3 thick, and he's as strong as a rolling bear with such a strong confidence. Is he an official? But those who come to this kitchen to steal food in the middle of the night are mostly petty officials. As the young man inquired, he pondered in his heart. According to this physique, the centurion may be a bit less, and the centurion should be about the same. He quickly released his hand that was holding Su Chu, wiped his clothes, and said, I know each other. I'm sorry. This military master is 1,000 commander in the camp. There are over 100,000 people in Cao Cao's military camp, not to mention the centurion, he hasn't seen many. Upon hearing this, Su Chu became unhappy. I looked so handsome and burly, and at first glance, I was a remarkable figure. How could you think that I was just a small centurion? Qianfu Chang. Su Chu lowered his face and said, listen carefully, I am the Lord. Wait, will the most capable assistant next to the Lord run into the fire room to steal food in the middle of the night and have a soldier ask questions? Speaking this out is bound to make people laugh. What the Lord? The young man looked at the strong man and said that Cao Cao was not tall and had an average appearance, but his demeanor and temperament were extraordinary. At first glance, this strong man looked like a reckless man, definitely not the Lord Cao Cao. Besides, Lord Cao Cao could not come out here at night to steal food. Master Bo. Su Chu thought for a moment and turned the conversation around. I'm the Master Bo. Main Thin. The young man has already calculated in his heart. Although the boss may not be big, he is responsible for distributing grain and logistics, and his power is also considerable. It's just that coming to the kitchen to steal food at this point shouldn't make it difficult for oneself. So it's Master Su bo, Master Su. The young man's heart turned and he had already chuckled. He took out other meat, vegetables, and wine from the stove, and placed the temperature of the wine on the nearby stove, eagerly helping Su Chu pour the wine. Su Chu was already hungry in his stomach. At this moment, he saw the young man very obedient. He sat down and ate the wine he had poured, and in an instant, he cleaned up the large meal for a few people and let out a comfortable burp. Having had enough to eat and drink, Su Chu sat slumped by the fire, patting his bulging stomach and letting out a satisfied sigh, but then he let out a long sigh. "What's wrong, Mr. Su?" The young man observed and took out a pot of wine to put in front of old Su. "Do you think the food is not good enough?" "Haha. The food is not good." Su Chu couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw that the young man was not worried about the current situation of the war, but only about the quality of the food. He felt that the young man was somewhat interested. "You're quite interesting. Since that's the case, why don't you call me Lao Su?" Su Chu said and took a sip of his muffled wine. "Damn it, LV Boo." He raised a good city wall more than 3 feet high, surrounded by the Surabaya and Ishui rivers. A city of Shepi has turned into an iron barrel. We've been here for half a month, but there's nothing we can do. It's annoying. We can't even eat enough. We can't sleep well. Is it you who can't eat enough or sleep well? The young man glanced at the clean bones on the table and thought to himself, fortunately, this master has been bothering him lately. Otherwise, the military provisions for 10 people might not be enough for him to eat alone. Since it's not that the food was not done well, then it's not my own business. Just seeing the edible old man sitting here sighing and not wanting to leave, the young man couldn't help but say, "Don't worry, old Su. LV Boo won't be able to hold on for long. You will soon be able to enjoy eating and drinking happily." How could it be so easy? Su Chu saw that the young cook didn't know the taste of sorrow and didn't understand anything about war. He sighed and shook his head, imitating the worried look of the protagonist. Shepi City is easy to defend but difficult to attack, and Lbu has been garrisoning for 100 days. A fierce battle is imminent. How could it be resolved so quickly? After all, a small cook doesn't know the big picture. Military strategist Guo Jia mocked Su Chu all day for being a brave and unscrupulous old hat. This time, old Su could be considered as a fat guy pretending to be a high-level figure. The young man confidently said, "You're wrong." "What are you saying?" Old Su couldn't bear to be blamed or wronged the most, and his face suddenly bulging with veins. After all, what can a small cook understand? How dare such a stinky kid talk nonsense in front of me? Laugh at me as a general. The young man remained calm and slowly poured a glass of wine, with a pretentious expression on his face that truly deserved to be beaten. The young man said slowly, "Old Su. When it comes to war, we can't just look at the surface. We need to know how to analyze the pros and cons. Sun Tzu from Jiangdong has always wanted to encroach on the Central Plains. Ma Tang and Han Sui from Xiuyang have also been invading the Central Plains. If the Lord were to adopt a protracted war in the Battle of Shepi, his old nest, Su Chang, would have been exposed long ago. So you can eat your meat with peace of mind. The Battle of Shepi will soon come to an end," said the young man with a pretentious yet serious expression. Old Su looked surprised as his wine beard hung in the air, thinking to himself that this young man was just like a template printed by Guo Jia, not at all likable. Did this kid eavesdrop on the meeting in the master's account? But soon, Lao Su dispelled this suspicion. After all, a small cook has no chance to get close to the master's tent, so it is estimated that this kitchen will take some effort. Not to mention his small physique. It's impossible to know martial arts at all, how can one move freely? Lao Su didn't want to guess anymore and asked directly, if what you said is true, wouldn't our army be motionless? Chapter 2. Night Observation of Astronomy. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Lao Su understood in his heart that there was no solution to this problem. After all, during the military conference during the day, the strategist Guo Jia did not come up with a solution to the problem. What he was thinking was that he deserved to make you act like a bully, so he couldn't answer that, could he? The young man looked as if he couldn't reveal the truth and didn't directly answer Lao Su's question. Instead, he said, "Don't worry, Lao Su. Within 3 days, the Lord can enter Shepi city." Upon hearing these words, Lao Su became even more disappointed and thought he had encountered some expert. Turns out he's just a boastful young man. Shepi city is easy to defend but difficult to attack, with over 30,000 troops stationed alone. Especially the city walls are high and thick, and the most deadly one is the moat. Old Su charged down to the city building with countless soldiers, but in the end, he stuffed them into the belly of the moat. But the young man in front of me said that it only takes 3 to 5 days to capture Shepi city. Lao Su smiled upon hearing this. This time is not enough to build a bridge. Sure enough, the cook is the cook. If he could rely on this cook to break through the city wall, wouldn't the military strategist Guo Jia and his team come to help him, chopping melons and vegetables in the kitchen all day long? Lao Su is a person who is easily swayed, especially when he sees this small cook as a backdrop. He feels that his image is tall, intelligent, and moving. The young man really wanted to slap Lao Su's superior appearance. But no, at least I am a self-proclaimed expert, a low-key expert, how could I be so easily angered? Knowing that Lao Su didn't believe his words, the young man calmly said, "Lao Su. I didn't say this to anyone else myself. I see that you are born with a general's destiny, so I'll tell you well." "Okay." Lao Su laughed and said, "I understand. Then you can explain how to open Shepi city in 3 to 5 days. Old Su felt speechless for a moment. He thought he was already capable of pretending to be forced, but now there is someone who can boast even more than him. I was just about to step down the stairs for the young man, but he toasted and refused to eat. He will be punished for drinking, and I will continue to see how you pretend. Anyway, it was also leisurely. Old Su filled a pot of wine and prepared to listen to this young man's secret. The young man quickly snatched the wine jug over and said, "If you drink again tomorrow, the old man can just push me over and chop me off." The young man doesn't want to lose his life just because of this pot of wine. Old Su looked disdainful and said, "Don't worry, little one. If that old cook dares to say no, I will definitely not spare him. If he offends Old Su, we will cut off all of this." He continued to take a sip of the wine and said, "You say yours, I drink mine, let's continue." The young man was surprised and said, "I can't believe this Old Su still has this right. It seems that he is also an unworthy master." The young man also took a sip of his wine and started saying, Old Su, take a look. The best defense of Shepi city is the moat, but the safest place is its most dangerous place." Lao Su took the conversation and said, "You wouldn't want to tell me that the Sisui River is his weakness, would you?" "That's right, it's the Sisui River. The Sisui River is exactly the weakness of Shepi city." The young man glanced at Old Su. It seemed that this picky old man could still accept his advice, at least he could make it through. The young man's words made Old Su feel a bit nostalgic in his heart. After all, every soldier in the military camp would hide in fear when he saw Old Su's face. Other generals, such as Su Huang, Xiahou, and others, have a very strict personality and are completely incompatible with their own grand opening and closing. Although Guo Jiaxuan Yu and other strategists were talented, they liked to pretend to be invisible, and he didn't like it either. Although the young man in front of me doesn't know him, the sound of Lao Su calling out is as intimate and natural as years of life and death friendship. Of course, the most important thing is that this kid's level of pretense is not lower than his own. The strong defense ability of the Sisui River has become a weakness in this young man's mouth. Is it difficult for this young man to see it clearly throughout the entire military camp? Anyway, in one word, this cow is pretending to be in the sky. Old Su felt heartbroken and suddenly became interested. Young man, let me hear your eloquence. How did the Sisui River become the weakness of Shepi City? The young man really hates iron for not becoming steel. You all said it so clearly, why haven't you understood? If you have something to say, just say it and fart it. As soon as Lao Su heard the criticism, his temper rushed up. He stepped forward and grabbed the young man's collar, saying, I hate you guys who put on forks the most. Every time you speak, you just don't speak human language. Explain to me the truth. The young man also realized that he couldn't offend the powerful old Su in front of him, so he quickly explained. Attack the shield of the sun with the spear of the sun. This is the relationship between the Surabaya River and Shepi City. If a rainstorm comes down, it must be that the water rises. At that time, the Surabaya River is no longer a moat, but a river of life and death. Just send soldiers to lead the river bank into Shepi City. At that time, Pifulbu will naturally lose the battle. Lao Su's face was extremely shocked, and what the young man said really made sense. Surprisingly, no one proposed this viewpoint during the daytime military conference, whether it was Guojia or Sun Yu. At this moment, Lao Su concluded that Pai Fu, Lv Bu, and Qing Chen Gong. They would never have imagined that someone could use the moat to attack. Young man. You have made great contributions. Su Chu said excitedly. Old Su immediately saw the big break in Pai City as if the opportunity was right in front of him, but he was not quite right. Yes, it was rainstorm. Of course, the premise is a rainstorm as you wish. In Lao Su's heart. The initial excitement plummeted like a roller coaster ride to the bottom. How easy is it to have a rainstorm? The young man saw that old Su was no longer so impulsive at this moment, and he could see old Su's doubts from his confused eyes. Then he continued to say, I watch the sky at night. There will be a rainstorm in 2 days. It will last for several days. As long as the Lord seizes this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he will be able to defeat Lv Bu and Shepi City at one fell swoop. Lao Su's mood at this moment is really uncontrollable. Damn it, this young man can even observe celestial phenomena. Old Su's eyes widened. Is this a heavenly deity descending to earth? Unexpectedly, a small cook is a legendary talent. If it is true, just use the rainstorm and Surabaya River to surge. So capturing Shepi City is as easy as a palm. Lao Su looked up at the window and said, let's blow. It's cold outside in the 12th month of winter. The dark sky is so dark that nothing can be seen. Where did the celestial phenomena come from? Damn it, I've deceived my feelings again. Old Su stared at the young man. Lifting the iron fist as big as a clay pot, he almost slammed it down and said, you really know how to observe celestial phenomena. Come and show me which celestial phenomenon you see. Chapter 3. Accepting Liu Bu as an adoptive son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This young man saw that old Su was anxious again, and naturally understood in his heart that he had not noticed the weather outside just now. The lights were dark and there was nothing, and there was no celestial phenomenon. The young man is also a bit unlucky, after all, he just pretended for a while and was slapped in the face. But it doesn't matter, as the saying goes, I'm not embarrassed, it's just someone else who's embarrassed. The next words made Lao Su's heart beat drums and gongs, 7 or 8 times up and down. The young man continued, his face not turning red and his heart not beating. I started studying the 8 trigrams and the Book of Changes at the age of 5. I have been studying the Qi Men Dun Jia, with knowledge of astronomy above and geography below. The so-called celestial phenomena naturally have specific signs that cannot be seen by ordinary people. Old Su was momentarily speechless and cursed in his heart, "Are you making fun of me for being uneducated?" Old Su admitted in his heart that he was uneducated, but he couldn't be looked down upon if he didn't slap someone in the face or expose their faults. I heard from my younger brother that I seemed to see a faint twinkling star in the night sky. Old Su tried to lean his image towards the young man, and I also had the ability to see the stars. Is that okay? Why didn't I see the stars? The young man also smiled bitterly in his heart. When pretending to be forced, no one would criticize him. When the young man said this, his face didn't turn red and his heart didn't jump. The only major reaction of the body is severe knee pain. At this point, the young man's arthritis had already caused him unbearable pain. Whenever arthritis occurs, it indicates the arrival of rainy days. Especially now this kind of intense pain, I'm sure it will rainstorm these days. Of course, the young man wouldn't tell Lao Su about this, anyway, he wouldn't break the law if he boasted. When the rainstorm comes as scheduled after 2 days, the image of pretending to be forced will naturally be blessed, and the staffing will also have a higher score. Lao Su will definitely believe in himself, respect himself deeply, and maybe even promote himself when the time comes. It's just that getting promoted doesn't seem like that much fun. Maybe it's good to become a gang leader, but being too big also puts a lot of pressure. The young man has already begun to enter his own lustful world. "Young man, your talent can already compete with that drunkard Guojia," said Old Su with half a doubt. When Lao Su said these words, he was thinking of giving this young man a thumbs up on the bragging scene. After all, without an audience's performance, it is the loneliest. In fact, Lao Su has not taken the rainstorm warning behind the boy as a matter of fact. After all, not everyone can call the shots. He should just accompany the boy to brag. "Keep a low profile, I just need to be my cook." Military strategist Guojia is a group army think tank, and we won't compete with him. Old Su was already laughing heartily in his heart. With just a little step, this guy could catch and blow upwards. He is truly a cowhide monster on the same level as me. "Little one, could you tell me, how could you be a better cook than a general?" Listen to me, as a general, he charges forward with his head pinned to his waistband every day, and if he accidentally sacrifices his head to the enemy. And what about the cook? He only needs to burn firewood and cook, chop melons and vegetables every day. Those feudal lords who suspect assassinations and other scenes will never encounter them. The young man confidently said. Besides, if you shoot a person, shoot a horse first. If you capture a thief, capture a king first. The general will die in 100 battles, and the brave will return in 10 years. Have you heard of anyone who pulled out the cook first in battle and killed him? When the two armies were in a standoff, the big sword was aimed at the general's head. Su Chu instinctively touched his neck. Fortunately, the neck is still intact, and the head on top is still there. I dare say that you, the cook, have a deeper understanding than the generals. It seems that the cook is really better than the generals. The victory or defeat of the army has nothing to do with the cook. Lao Su seems to have been moved by this little guy. If given the opportunity, it seems like you can also try becoming a cook, at least being a cook can save your head. At night, when I saw the coolness, the atmosphere of pretending to be coerced slowly faded away. I don't think there's much room for discussion between the two of them. I'll dress up and pretend to be coerced again tomorrow. In the happy eye contact between the two, the conversation finally came to an end. Before leaving, Lao Su didn't forget to ask the boy's name. The young man said slowly, Lin Wu, the character Ju Fei. Very good. Lin Ju Fei. Lao Su, I'll come see you again next time, Lao Su took bold steps and left the kitchen with a smile. On the second day at noon. Cao Cao's convention was to gather all the civil and military officials into the main camp of the Central Army. Shepi City has become a thorn in Cao Cao's eyes and a thorn in his flesh. Cao Cao thought to himself that his migraine symptoms were definitely caused by these two young men. If he didn't remove his young men Lv Bu and Qingong, his headache would be better. Just Cao Cao didn't know that even if he took down the city of Pai, his headache wouldn't be better. Perhaps if he didn't kill Hua Tuo, there would be a famous doctor who could help him treat his headache. There have been quite a few military conferences recently. After all, Shepi City has been unable to be conquered for a long time. The current city of Shuzhou is also easy to obtain but difficult to defend. Only by capturing Shepi City can Shuzhou City be stable. Nowadays, Liu Bu in Shepi City is like a dog skin ointment. Stick firmly to Shuzhou City, I advance and retreat, I leave and he attacks. It's annoying, and I can't stay stationed in Shuzhou City all the time. Cao Cao could only ask the advisors in the Central Army camp to give advice again. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been besieging Shepi City for several weeks now. If we don't capture Shepi City again, we are afraid that the soldiers' morale will be unstable and their supplies will not be sufficient. Qingyu and Guojia. Under Lao Chao's sincere inquiry. Guojia's suggestion is to find ways to counter Liu Bu after besieging the city, so as to break through the city of Shepi from within. After all, even the strongest fortress is the easiest to break through from within. Qingyu's approach was to reward Lv Bu heavily and persuade him to join Cao Cao. Cao Cao also wanted to reward Lv Bu, but among people, dragons and phoenixes, horses and red rabbits, as well as the 4 beautiful women Jiao Chan, were all in Liu Bu's hands. Cao Cao brought a ball to reward them. Lord, why not take Lv Bu as his adopted son? Lv Bu loves this thing the most. Sun Yu came up with a very kind idea. Cao Cao's eyes rolled and he said, accepting Lv Bu as his adopted son. It seems a bit reliable. Lv Bu is the world's top general, with 1 person in charge and 10,000 people unable to escape. As long as there is Lv Bu, why worry that the feudal lords of Dongwu and Hebei cannot attack him? Cao Cao nodded in satisfaction, regardless of whether Liu Bu agreed or not. But soon, Cao Cao began to get angry and said, Bastard Xuanyu, you want to kill me? Guojia, slap him twice. Quickly, Sun Yushi slapped him and his whole body was bewildered. Lord, why? Xuanyu, this is a bad idea. Lv Bu is already a servant with 3 surnames. Changing his godfather is even more diligent than changing his wife. Most importantly, Lv Bu likes to kill his godfather the most. Aren't you sending me to kill him? Cao Cao said arrogantly. The meeting continued, and each of the generals felt the need for a strong attack. After all, it is not the style of a military general to surround without attacking. Instead of talking nonsense outside, it's better to shout for the bird like Liu Bu to come down and have a great battle. Chapter 4. What spear to use? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Everyone, you say 1 word and I say 1 word, just talking nonsense. I guess the most annoying thing at this moment is Cao Cao. Cao Cao had a gloomy expression on his face, pressing down on his temple. Feeling restless and restless. Su Chu, as the best friend of the old Cao group, was also Cao Cao's bodyguard and nanny. Now Pai Fu Liu Bu is making the man he is protecting so uncomfortable. Old Su can't see this scene, and he wants to directly wield his double axes to chop down Liu Bu, that bird man. Let me charge again, I will definitely scold Birdman Lv Bu and lead him to battle, Su Chu said fiercely. At this moment, boom. Boom. Suddenly, 2 thunderbolts came from outside. The mountain rain is about to come, and the wind fills the building. The strong wind is raging outside the military camp, and the military flag is ringing loudly. Everyone's hearts became even more depressed. Once there is a rainstorm. The river is raging, and the ground is muddy. The tank will not be able to move forward. Even warhorses cannot gallop. Even infantry cannot move. Does God really want to bless Liu Bei? Cao Cao's face was gloomy. At this moment, no one dares to make a sound. Within the entire army, within the main camp. The abnormally low air pressure. Damn it. Rainstorm. Watching the sky at night. Isn't Lin Chu really able to watch the sky at night? Su Chu whispered, and an idea suddenly flashed into his mind. Isn't this rainstorm a good time for Lin Juefa to say that the Surabaya River will rise suddenly? It seems that God helps me. It's my turn to install a bully. Cao Cao was already unhappy in his heart, and when he heard Su Chu muttering, he suddenly became angry and said, "What are you saying there? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't mutter below." Everyone felt depressed and restless in their hearts. As soon as they heard that Cao Cao had found a vent, they all looked at Su Chu and waited for Cao Cao to pull him out and reward him with a military stick. "Lord! Lord, there will be a way to capture Shepi City," Su Chu shouted with a sour expression on his face. Upon hearing these words, Cao Cao's face turned black as he said, "Su Chu, as his capable general, can only do it directly. What can be done in his mind?" Military strategists Guo Jia, Sun Yu, and Jia Su all looked towards Su Chu. "Su Chubby. It's already this critical moment, can you stop boasting?" Everyone assumed in their hearts that Su Chu could only talk nonsense. Of course, the most infuriating thing was that Su Chu actually used this matter to show off. Without scolding him in everyone's hearts, how could he be happy? Su Chu's eyes turned red and he said angrily, "Don't look down on people. I tell you, just use the Sisui River, attack with spears. Attack with shields. That kind of thing, and you can take down Shepi City." Su Chu was so angry that his face turned red and his neck was thick. In a moment of desperation, he forgot Lin Juefa's original words of using the spear of the sun to attack the shield of the sun. General Chao Ren was the first to express his dissatisfaction. As the first-tier general of the group army, why should you make Su Chu shine brightly? I said, "Su Chu, every time you charge, you always take the lead. Which time didn't you say you would take down Shepi City?" But what about the result? Everyone felt in their hearts that Su Chu had grasped Cao Cao's weakness. After all, Cao Cao claimed to recruit wise men from all over the world and allowed everyone to speak up bravely. It was precisely because Cao Cao allowed everyone to come up with suggestions that Su Chu came up with some unrealistic methods. Of course, Cao Cao did not believe that Su Chu could come up with a reason. The rain outside the tent was pouring heavily, with bean-sized raindrops falling on the ceiling of the military camp, mixed with the chaotic noise inside the camp. At this moment, the Sisui River is turbulent with several feet of rising water. The people in the city are hiding at home, able to avoid the heavy rain, but unable to avoid the wars and massacres of this era. Everyone in the military camp was staring at Su Chu. Guo Jia had another thought in her heart. Use the spear of the sun to attack the shield of the sun. Just now, Su Chu wanted to express this sentence. As the moat of Shepi City, the Surabaya River protects Shepi City very well in ordinary days. But at the moment, the rainstorm is pouring. As long as the rainstorm lasts for 2 days, the river will flood naturally, and the stakes at that time are really uncertain. Guo Jia looked at Su Chu for a moment, but Su Chu was completely unaware and only reported Lin Juefa's plan from last night to everyone. Everyone was taken aback by the sound. Wow, grass! Is Su Chu you? Su Chu, have you mutated? Su Chu! Su Chu! The generals in the camp began to cheer up. Especially Cao Cao, he almost slapped himself. At this moment, Cao Cao felt that he must be dreaming. Even Su Chu can offer advice, so the sow must be able to climb the tree. Cao Cao is probably wondering if he hasn't woken up yet. Su Chu, who only knows how to charge into battle, actually came up with a method of using the spear of the sun to attack the shield of the sun. The leader of the group army, upon hearing this method, already believed that Xiepi City was in his pocket. Soldiers, Su Chu's plan is very good. We can definitely take down Pai City this time. Cao Cao has announced the best news these days. Lord. Victory. Lord. Victory. The soldiers did not forget to give Cao Cao 2 cheers. Xiahou Dun and others all gave Su Chu a score of 666. Old Su, did you get struck by lightning yesterday? Why did you suddenly become enlightened today? Su Huang said with a smile over there. You were just struck by lightning, your whole family was struck by lightning. Su Chu gave Su Huang a white glance. Military strategist Guo Jia also asked unwillingly, how could this grass-headed general come up with such a clever plan? Su Chu, why did you come up with such a clever plan? Su Chu began to pretend to say, my lord, I couldn't sleep last night. I had been studying how to capture Xiepi City. It was a long night, so I had to relax in the military camp. I just saw the first of the 12 constellations in the Ziwei star position, and calculated that today's rainstorm was coming. At this moment, the Surabaya River must be rising, and I came up with this plan in a flash. Su Chu's pretense exuded a proud expression, which made him want to be beaten up. Still observing the celestial phenomena at night. Don't talk about Cao Cao, even generals like Su Huang won't believe him. This bunch of nonsense. They are all brothers sleeping together, who doesn't know how many eggs and how many dice each other has. Everyone is still very clear about Su Chu's abilities. Everyone's perception of Su Chu's character is nothing more than 2 battle axes. It sounds good to say that one person is in charge, and 10,000 people cannot escape. It doesn't sound good, but it's just a clumsy piece of elm that can't be cut, which is why it can block the level. Let Su Chu lead his elite troops and strong generals to slaughter the enemy camp. Su Chu can definitely complete the task very well. But let Su Chu go to observe the sky at night. No one in the entire military camp would believe it. At least his chubby appearance with big ears is impossible to believe. Although everyone is full of doubts. Su Chu still enjoys the feeling of being surrounded by people at this moment, and this cowhide really needs to be boasted about. Anyway, bragging doesn't pay taxes. I said, everyone, don't believe it yet. I often study the astronomy and geography of Chimenduanjia, and I know that it can predict the future in 5,000 years. Su Chu began to add fuel and vinegar, hoping that this bull's skin would blow directly into the sky, and said proudly. Upon hearing Su Chu's words, Cao Cao felt a little displeased in his heart. Think of a good strategy. By the way, it's possible to boast about the cow. But I want to rub everyone's intelligence on the ground. Cao Cao was the first to refuse. After all, if someone like Su Chu were to win the title of a military think tank, who else could Cao Munga rely on for advice in future wars? Chapter 5. The Land Duke seeks no one to find him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Chu, these strategies are definitely not something you can come up with. Honestly explain, who told you? Looking at Su Chu with a silly and forced expression, Cao Cao felt a little displeased. My lord is unjustly accused. Why don't even you believe me? Su Chu began to sympathize. Heroes and talents like me, Su Chu, study military tactics all day long and study hard. At critical moments, no one actually believes in my abilities. Even my most respected lord doesn't believe me. Nonsense, Su Chu, Su Huang cursed fiercely. Everyone likes to brag about it. But it's not kind of you like Lao Su to keep going endlessly. If you honestly explain it, we can still ask the Lord to punish you leniently. Military strategist Guo Jia also began to feel dissatisfied. After all, Su Chu was just a silly and rough person in his eyes, and even managed to steal his attention. Su Chu Gang wanted to continue his sophistry. Seeing Cao Cao's angry eyes wide open and his face gloomy like a clown in Peking opera, I naturally understood that he had pretended to be forced, and it was better to be honest and honest. My lord, this plan wasn't actually what I thought of. After I fell asleep last night, I felt a short old man knocking on my bed. As I looked up, I saw a fairy-like old man standing next to me, saying he was the Duke of Land. Su Chu gritted his head and made up the following statement. That immortal old Taoist told me that my lord is the dragon and phoenix among people, and he will inevitably unify the Central Plains in the future. A mere young man named Lu Bu had a delusion of trying to influence my lord's fortune through the city of Shepi. It was just a pipe dream. As soon as I heard him nod and praise repeatedly, the old man in the land saw that I was loyal to my lord and was in a hurry to conquer him, so he told me the way to capture the city of Shepi. Su Chu breathed a sigh of relief when he came here. He found himself capable of making up a lie so naturally, and now he was speaking more and more fluently. So I only conveyed this plan to my lord today. As long as we follow the old way to dig up the Sisui River, we can take down the city of Shepi. Su Chu controlled his gaze this time, with a sincere and resolute expression on his face. Su Chu has always been talking with a lively and graceful expression, without any sense of stability, but at this moment there was nothing he could do. In order to enhance the atmosphere of borrowing Zhou Gong, the expression naturally needs to be more serious. Of course, Su Chu also wanted to protect Lin Juefei. After all, Su Chu did not expect that Lin Juefei could really observe the stars at night. Unfortunately, Lin Juefei admitted that he wanted to be a small leader. Otherwise, if we speak up about Lin Juefei now, the Lord will definitely reward him as a high-ranking official. Su Chu is just a straightforward person, but his heart is not bad. However, on the other hand, even if Su Chu spoke up about Lin Juefei's situation, no one would believe that a gang leader could come up with such a strategy to defeat the enemy. Su Chu's lewd lies did not arouse anyone's suspicion. This made Su Chu very suspicious of himself. At least I am also a general under the Lord's command, may I not be so bad. No one believes that the strategy of Laozi came up with when it comes to flooding down Pai City. It's said to be the non-existent land god, but surprisingly everyone believes it. What a jerk. Su Chu naturally wouldn't understand that in this chaotic world, life is thinner than paper, and the theory of ghosts and gods still meets most expectations. Moreover, Su Chu was just half a bucket of water jingling, and everyone would rather believe in ghosts and gods than Su Chu's brain. Cao Cao doesn't believe Su Chu's nonsense at all. If he's so easy to deceive, he won't be able to sit firmly as the commander of this army. In addition, Cao Cao himself is naturally suspicious, and even the right things will be marked with a question mark by Cao Cao first. Su Chu's ghost pulling at him is easy to see through at a glance. Cao Cao didn't believe it in his heart, but he didn't want to make any fuss about it either. After all, the most important battle in front of him had already been resolved, and he just wanted to have a good fight before speaking. With a solemn expression on his face, he ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, each of you return to your camp to reorganize your troops and prepare to march and attack Shepi City tomorrow after the rain stops. No. 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 Everyone replied. My lord, I still have something to say. Su Chu followed behind, shouting and running all the way to catch up. After all, I finally caught a big fish, and if I don't boast about it properly, I feel guilty about it. It's a pity to let the opportunity slip away like this now. Besides, I offered a strategy that shocked heaven and earth, but I didn't receive any reward. This general is really not worth it in the world. As Lin Juefei said, those who are generals must charge forward and sacrifice their lives at any time. But those who are leaders only need to manage the food in the pot. Su Chu stood in front of Cao Cao and made him feel impatient. War comes first. Let's talk nonsense when we come back. Hurry up and reorganize your troops. He doesn't think Su Chu has anything serious to say besides packing forks. Yes, my lord. Su Chu suppressed his frustration and rubbed his nose in a gloomy manner. Although he had not studied, he also knew that, when the emperor is angry, he will lay 1,000,000 corpses. When a man is angry, blood will splatter 3 feet. A person like the Lord is not something that ordinary people can easily provoke, as they accidentally give away their only head on the neck. Su Chu bowed and left, quickly leading his troops. Until all the soldiers left, Cao Cao left behind his military advisor Guojiao. Xiaofeng, do you believe what Su Chu said? Guojia's face chuckled as he said, what kind of fairy in a dream guides you? Even if the landlord wants to find him, he won't find him. You can't even learn how to use the spear of the sun to attack the shield of the sun. Su Chu, this rough person, can only dance with his sword and stick. It's impossible to come up with such a good plan. Cao Cao completely agrees with Guojia's ideas. Su Chu was able to come up with this strategy, and there must be a high-level expert behind it. Cao Cao glanced at Guojia and pondered, so there are still people like this in the army. It's like a scumbag doing math problems. Suddenly, a top student handed over a note. The above is the answer that academic achievers need to ponder for weeks, so they naturally don't want to waste their efforts. This can make people as proud as Cao Cao feel uncomfortable in their hearts. I worked hard to besiege the city and break through the enemy, but I didn't expect that there would already be high-level officials in the army with a clear plan. If this expert could come out early to guide the maze, wouldn't he be able to take the world into his pocket with just a raise of his hand? Don't talk about the world, at least don't engage in such a long war of attrition with that Fulubu. Let's wait until tomorrow when we take down Pai City. Cao Cao understood in his heart that there must be a reason why this hermit expert refused to step forward. He couldn't be too anxious now. Feng Xiao, please send someone to follow Su Chu. If you discover the mastermind behind the scenes, please notify me as soon as possible. Obey my lord. For 2 days in a row, the sky in Shuzhou seemed to pierce a big curtain, and rainstorm kept pouring down. The already flowing river water is now rising even higher. Cao Cao ordered people to follow Su Chu's proposal. Send someone to dig up the embankment of the Sisui River. All the water was diverted to the city of Shepi. Chapter 6. Easy to win. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Within the city of Shepi, Liu Bu, with his own strength, repelled Cao Cao's 300,000 strong army outside the Sisui River. The eunuch Cao Mengde, taking the emperor to command the feudal lords, is nothing more than that. Liu Bu was in the city, chatting proudly with Qin Gong. Unexpectedly, the Sisui River suddenly flooded into the city. On the streets of the city, the river water rapidly surged at a visible speed, and everywhere was a howl of sorrow. Liu Bu's tens of thousands of troops have all turned into shrimp soldiers and crab generals in this vast ocean of water. Although Liu Bu claims to be invincible in the world, and his fierce Western Liang steeds are elite soldiers, his unfamiliarity with water is the fatal weakness of northern soldiers. The brave and elite soldiers of Xiliang, like mud cows entering the sea, were scattered in this river and washed away by the Sisui River. The Sisui River surged into the city of Shepi, and all the city defenses were rendered ineffective. Generals such as Su Chu and Su Huang led their soldiers to chop melons and vegetables, and easily captured Shepi city. This is the easiest siege battle Su Chu has ever fought in his life. For several consecutive days, Cao Cao was busy organizing the remnants of Liu Bu's army in resettling various county towns in Shepi city. Cao Cao is inquiring about the plan for dealing with prisoners in Shuzhou city. Most people received proper arrangements, and their old friend Qin Gong swore to death not to comply, but was kindly cooked by Cao Cao. Liu Bu swore to follow to the death, but was rejected by Cao Cao with no mercy. Xiangwang had a dream, but the goddess had no intention. The falling flowers intentionally flowed without mercy. Chen Gong and LV Bu's completely opposite attitudes towards themselves made Cao Cao's heart race with a group of grass, mud, and horses. The last person named Liu Bei made Cao Cao feel very headache. Liu Bei gave Cao Cao a very dangerous and uneasy feeling, although Liu Bei appeared to have drooping ears and was harmless to humans and animals. Cao Cao once again summoned the powerful strategists of the group army to discuss how to deal with Liu Bei. My lord, I suggest that Liu Bei be appointed as the governor of Shuzhou. Let Liu Bei manage the affairs within Shuzhou city, but the troops and horses within the city should be led by our own people to prevent Liu Bei from becoming a dictator alone. I suggest killing the big-eared thief Liu Bei. Liu Bei claims to be the queen of Zhongshan County, pretending to be a member of the imperial family, searching for resources and seizing territory everywhere. If this thief is not killed, he will inevitably become a future threat when he grows up. The Lord cannot be killed, said another strategist. Liu Bei is a noble nobleman. If Liu Bei is killed, everyone in the world will feel cold. You can take Liu Bei back to Xuchang and give him any job. Put Liu Bei under house arrest in Xuchang. This can also leave a good reputation for the Lord and prevent Liu Bei from recruiting troops, buying horses, and dividing the territory. Whether it was Cheng Yu's suggestion, Guo Jia's idea, or Jia Su's strategy, they all made Cao Cao feel very conflicted. Cao Cao followed his inner thoughts and wanted to kill Liu Bei. Cao Cao understood in his heart that he wanted to kill Liu Bei, but due to his strength, there were insufficient excuses. If Liu Bei is killed recklessly, how can you stop Yu's mouth? Enabling Liu Bei can advertise himself for recruiting talented people, but it can also easily lead to potential problems for Liu Bei. After all, Liu Bei has many generals in his hands, and the most famous ones are naturally Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, two tiger generals. Once Liu Bei becomes the climate, along with the tiger generals under his command, Liu Bei will definitely be more difficult to deal with than Liu Bu from Shepi City. But what if we kill Liu Bei? In this way, the scholars all over the world will start to attack me Cao Cao again, and there will definitely be democratic figures who will write a condemnation letter. Chen Lin almost cured Cao Cao's headache when she wrote a proclamation to suppress the bandits. Whenever a headache broke out, Cao Cao would take out the proclamation and read it, which also made Cao Cao feel the terror of cultural public opinion. The past is vividly remembered, but Cao Cao did not want people to say that he had poisoned the Han dynasty and harmed heroic figures. Otherwise, who would dare to defect to me in the future? Moreover, with Yuan Shao in the north and Ma Ting in the west, the Han dynasty was in turmoil, and various feudal forces were eyeing it. Cao Cao was already a warlord in a chaotic era. In this turbulent era, Cao Cao must consider everything carefully. Cao Cao was entangled for a long time, his thoughts like a winding mountain road. In the end, his mind fell into a stalemate and he was in a dilemma. At this moment, Guo Jia walked in and said, "Lord! Lord!" The soldiers reported that they have discovered the hidden master behind Su Chu. Upon hearing Guo Jia's words, Cao Cao's eyes lit up, like a spirited young man. "Who is it? Who is it? Hurry up and help me bring him over. I want to treat this landlord well." Cao Cao immediately asked everyone to step down, and Liu Bei's matter will be discussed later. Cao Cao thought to himself, being able to capture Liu Bu and capture the city of Shepi is entirely a gift from this high-ranking official. As long as we receive the guidance of the so-called Land Duke, are we still afraid that our great cause will not be achieved? Guo Jia did not invite the reclusive old man to the military camp, but cautiously led Cao Cao to the kitchen. As soon as the two of them walked to the entrance of the kitchen, they heard the sound of Su Depang's loud bell coming from inside, mixed with pig-like laughter. "Brother Lin, your plan of attacking with whatever hair was really awesome. The astronomical rainstorm made me win in front of my lord." Su Chu was immersed in yesterday's suggestions, his face intoxicated like a spring breeze bathing. Lin Juefei closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh in his heart. Grass. It's fortunate that I leaked that magnificent and earth-shattering plan, and even found a fat and big-eared spokesperson. In today's internet age, such a spokesperson feels like being blocked by the platform is really a disgrace. Su Chu still proudly said, if it weren't for my younger brother's words, I just wanted to be a cook with peace of mind. I would definitely recommend you to the Lord. With your strategy alone, the Lord would definitely reward you with a high-ranking official. Upon hearing these words, Lin Juefei felt as if he had missed a few million and felt indignant in his heart. You silly old Su, I'm afraid that being an official would be troublesome. But with such a good opportunity in front of me, how could you at least bring me some gold and beautiful women? Lin Juefei felt bitter in his heart. He needed to look for a smarter one in the future, and this time he was doing public welfare. Lin Juefei pretended to be forced to the end in his original attire. If I pretended to be forced, no one would be able to see through my skills. He said softly, keep a low profile, I'm just a small cook and don't care about fame and fortune. Cao Cao and Guojia had already walked to the entrance of the kitchen, and when they heard Su Chu calling each other Lin Lao Di, they both looked at each other in confusion. What's brother Lin? Su Chu did not tell Lin Juefei his true identity. Firstly, one can be sworn brothers with Lin Juefei. After all, Lin Juefei is a legendary talent, and Su Chu felt that being able to become brothers with a legendary talent and pair it with a pot of wine was the greatest pleasure in life, and one cannot easily break the balance. Secondly, it is also the most important point. Don't be fooled by Su Chu's usual carelessness, but let him admit that he used Lin Juefei's strategy to make a name for himself. Isn't that asking Su Chu to admit that he is a thief with a theft plot? If Su Chu were to slap himself in the face, Su Chu wouldn't do it. Guojia and Cao Cao outside the door were completely stunned. Is it only a spirited young man, who is known as the mastermind of the world's terrifying customs and the vast past and present, who is so cunning as to flood the city of Shepi? Chapter 7. The main book also has a chief and deputy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the kitchen, Lin Juefei and Su Chu were still discussing what was happening in the military camp that day. When Su Chu told Lin Juefei that Cao Cao, not Guojia, was the first to think of flooding the city of Pai. What? Shouldn't it be Guojia's first thought of flooding Shepi city? Lin Juefei had a bad premonition in his heart. What was going on? I have been familiar with the Three Kingdoms since I was young, and I vividly remember that flooding Shepi was the solution that Guojia came up with. So he has been very calm eating and drinking in the barracks, not worried about the outcome of this battle at all. However, from Su Chu's answer, Lin Juefei began to realize whether he had inadvertently changed the course of history. Lin Juefei was unwilling to believe this situation. Since coming into this chaotic world, I haven't wandered around, I just sneaked into the kitchen and became a cook. On weekdays, if you don't step out of the main gate, which means you're bragging to Su Chu, how could you have the opportunity to generate the butterfly effect? However, Lin Juefei did not realize that he had leaked the secret to Su Chu. Causing Su Chu to play the trump card of flooding the city of Pai in advance, naturally disrupted Guojia's thoughts and disrupted the development of this chaotic era. Su Chu interrupted Lin Juefei's thoughts and asked, "Do you also know Guojia?" "I don't know him," Lin Juefei shook his hand and said, "although I don't know him, everyone has heard that he is very powerful. He has read a lot of poetry and books, and is very resourceful. He is the first division of the Chao family's army. He's just a bookworm and an alcoholic." When talking about Guojia, Su Chu's temper suddenly surged from the bottom of his heart. After all, for so many years, Guojia has always regarded himself as the top strategist of the camp army, and his credit and honor have steadily suppressed the famous general Su Chu. Su Chu's heart had always been unbalanced. Why did I pin my head on my belt, charge into battle, kill enemies and attack cities, but my reputation is not as good as a talkative Guojia? What is Guojia? Does he know the art of war? Su Chu said fiercely. Cao Cao and Guojia looked at each other outside the door. How much money do you owe Lao Su? Cao Cao asked with a hint of sarcasm in his words. Guojia hesitated and began to doubt in her heart. Did one day I not operate smoothly enough, resulting in digging Su Chu's ancestral tomb? Otherwise, how could Su Chu be so angry that he completely disregarded his image and criticized himself behind his back? But these small unpleasant moments quickly passed, and Guojia had no time to analyze Su Chu in his mind. To Guojia's shock, when he saw the rainstorm that day, he really thought of the way to flood the Pai City. But when Guojia had not yet expressed his plan, Su Chu had already announced the answer in advance. If I were to argue with Su Chu for an answer, wouldn't it be like a top student arguing with a scumbag about the answer? This completely goes against the identity of the first strategist of Guojia's camp, so Guojia did not speak on that day. It's amazing that the spiritual young man inside the house could suspect that he was the first one to think of flooding the city of Xiapi. Guojia's face was filled with shock. Old Su paid no attention to the thoughts of these cultural figures. The more he drank, the more he got drunk and said, "Brother Lin, do you also think Su Chu is not as good as Guojia?" Lin Juefe didn't even know that Su Chu was the chief clerk in front of him, so he naturally didn't take into account Su Chu's attitude. Su Chu. Lin Juefe pondered for a while before slowly saying, Su Chu is a fierce general under the Lord's command. In terms of bravery and combat prowess, he is definitely one of the first-tier generals in the First Army. Among the current generals in the army, no one can defeat General Su Chu. Lin Juefe remembered, during the Battle of Xinjiang that day, Su Chu challenged LV Bu alone for dozens of rounds. Su Chu never fell behind at all, so he had a great time. Upon hearing Lin Juefe's praise like this, Su Chu felt like basking in a spring breeze, feeling refreshed during happy occasions. He immediately pulled Lin Juefe to drink with him. But Lin Juefe suddenly changed his tone. But what? Su Chu felt proud in his heart. Praise hard. Praise hard. It turns out that Brother Lin also knows that Su Chu is the first general in the camp army. But Su Chu is just a reckless man. Although his physical strength is explosive, his brain is not very useful. Lin Juefe hit Su Chu's lowest point in his heart with a single sentence. The air suddenly froze, filled with a smoky smell. The wine pot in Su Chu's hand made a creaking sound, because Su Chu's huge hand almost crushed the wine pot. Although this statement was not heard by Su Chu for the first time, everyone in the entire Chao camp also knew that Su Chu was a person with weak connections. But no one dared to say this in front of Su Chu. After all, Su Chu's military prowess could easily crush those who angered him. Su Chu's mind is hot at this moment, and his face is pale with iron. I wish I could just pick up my double axes and chop Lin Juefe into flesh and mud. Old Su, why is your face a bit ugly? Why don't you continue drinking? Lin Juefe noticed Lao Su's expression, as if something was wrong. Wait for me for a while. Su Chu said angrily, I'm looking for my knife. Although Lin Juefe had imparted him a peerless strategy of recklessly exploring the past and present, shocking the ages, Su Chu should respect this cultural young man. But Lin Juefe dared to criticize him like this. Su Chu felt that he couldn't bear it and insisted on killing this young man. Ha ha ha, let's hurry inside. Outside the door, Cao Cao and Guojia were already laughing so hard that their chests pressed against their backs. They quickly entered the kitchen. Cao Cao and Guojia were happy to see Su Chu being ridiculed like this, but they were also afraid that Su Chu, a reckless man, would cause trouble. If we really cut off this extraordinary expert, it would be more than worth the loss. Master. Su Chu saw Cao Cao walking in, and his drinking power immediately subsided by half. He stopped as soon as he shouted a word. Cao Cao and Guijia signaled to Su Chu not to speak up. Cao Cao understood in his heart, there must be a reason why such an expert is hiding in his own military kitchen. If he suddenly reveals his identity as the leader of the Cao family's camp, he may scare away this extraordinary expert, which would be a huge loss. Lin Juefei saw two people walking in and frightened Su Chu a bit, realizing that they might have some connection. "What is the master?" Lin Juefei quickly asked. Cao Cao remained calm and said, "It's nothing, he called me Lord Bo." Cao Cao walked straight towards Lin Juefei, his eyes rolling wildly around him. Under this frivolous gaze, Lin Juefei's back turned cold and all his goosebumps appeared. The person in front of him was staring straight at him, and Lin Juefei was a bit skeptical whether this person had come out of Brokeback Mountain. "Who is this?" "Lao Su, didn't you say you were Lord Zhu Bo? Why is he also Lord Zhu Bo?" Lin Juefei asked hastily. Upon hearing these words, Cao Cao realized that he might have said something wrong and quickly explained, "I am the right person. I am Lord Bo. Lao Su is the deputy. By the way, the main Thin also has a chief and deputy. One head and one pair, as the saying goes, a high-ranking official can crush a person." No wonder Lao Su would wake up half of the time when he saw him. "Lord Bo, hello," Lin Juefei replied, not wanting to provoke these big shots in this military camp. As soon as he entered the military camp, it was as deep as the sea. Lin Juefei placed great importance on the principle of maintaining safety and being polite to everyone. Chapter 8. Group Searching for Abuse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Counselor, Lin Wu, with the courtesy name Juefei, has met the chief clerk. After confirming the identity of the person in front of Lin Juefei, he earnestly paid his respects to the chief clerk. After all, in this military camp, any supervisor would hold a higher official position than Lin Juefei, the cook. In fact, Lin Juefei is someone who can't be called an official, let alone a senior official who can crush people. Cao Cao's face lit up with joy, like a dog biting a bone and a dung beetle encountering fertilizer. Men's preferences are only understood by men themselves. Cao Cao already had a rough appearance, coupled with that wicked smile, his overall image and temperament were not to mention how sleazy. Fortunately, when ancient people paid respects to their superiors, they all bowed and bowed. Lin Juefei lowered his head and did not see the deep friendship on Cao Cao's old face at this moment. Otherwise, Lin Juefei would probably have felt nauseous for 3 days. Cao Cao quickly said happily, "You don't need to be so polite. Just call me Old Cao. Young man, please take care of me quickly." Upon hearing that the name of the chief clerk in front of him contained the word Cao, Lin Juefei was shocked and asked, "Chief clerk, your surname is Cao. Are you a high-ranking official of the Cao family?" Lin Juefei muttered to himself, is this person in front of him a high-ranking official in the Cao Cao camp? Lin Juefei doesn't want to contact the high-ranking officials of the Cao family camp. Lin Juefei had been reading poetry and books since childhood, familiar with the Three Kingdoms, and knew that the most chaotic relationship in the Three Kingdoms belonged to the Cao Cao camp. Back then, Cao Cao even had to sleep with his own daughter. In law and comforted himself under the guise of not letting the fat and water flow out of the fields. Lin Juefei has just entered a turbulent era and does not have any female family members, but he is also afraid that this old Cao will occupy the inheritance of the Cao family. If old Cao also has any bad habits, wouldn't his innocence be ruined in his hands? The more Lin Juefei thought about it, the more he felt palpitations, and his nervous and beating heart had already reached his throat. Upon hearing Lin Juefei's inquiry, Cao Cao exclaimed to himself, "Oh my, I accidentally exposed my surname." Immediately explained, "I am just a distant relative of the Cao family. It was my cousin who helped me secure the official position of the chief clerk." I am not the core figure of the Chao family's camp. Upon hearing this chaotic relationship, Lin Juefei was even more certain that the Chao family's camp was absolutely extremely chaotic, beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He kept warning himself that the old Chao in front of him was at least surnamed Chao, and that he had only managed to sneak into the position of the chief clerk. The Chao family should not be touched. I can't touch it. Anyway, the old Chao in front of him is still far away from the high-level positions of the Chao family camp, so Lin Juefei felt relieved. Originally, the chief clerk's body was imbued with the bloodline of the Chao family. No wonder his whole body exuded an aristocratic aura. At first glance, it was like a jade tree facing the wind, charming and charming, everywhere. Nice to meet you. Brother Lin, don't be polite, call me Lao Chao. Chao Chao felt like he had poured honey into his heart, so sweet that he almost didn't touch Lin Juefei's hand. Su Chu was hit by Lin Juefei just now and had not yet regained his senses. At this moment, seeing the Lord's gaze at Lin Juefei, I also understood in my heart. Old Chao has taken a liking to Lin Juefei. Lin Juefei felt a little relieved and looked at Guojia next to him, saying, "Who is this adult?" Guojia's reaction was naturally quick. As the leader of the camp, his brain understood Chao Chao's concerns and quickly replied, "Brother Lin, I am a clerk in the military camp. Just call me Old Guo." Guojia continued to joke, "Brother, I think your evaluation of Su Chu just now was very accurate. Su Chu is definitely what you said, with a missing thread in his mind. I'm thinking of finding someone to frame this evaluation, hang it in the study, and enjoy it day by day," Guojia said proudly, glancing at Su Chu from the corner of his eye. "Let Su Chu confront me every day, and make you suffer from it. It's so satisfying." Su Chu's veins were bulging on his face, but he couldn't take action and his teeth were almost crushed. Lin Juefei laughed and said, "Old Guo, don't spread rumors everywhere. General Su Chu would definitely come over and crush me if he heard these words." "No way. Brother, don't worry. I will keep my mouth shut about what I heard today," Guojia replied satisfactorily. The three of them looked at Su Chu without hesitation, because everyone felt a heat wave emanating from Su Chu, as if a volcano was about to erupt. At this moment, Su Chu was speechless in his heart as he ate huanglian, unable to express his suffering. He was publicly humiliated by Guojia, yet he couldn't explain it with such eloquence. Su Chu's eyes turned red, and blood surged on his face, as if he was about to burst through his blood vessels and burst out. If it weren't for Chao Chao plundering the formation here, after all, even the leader of the camp Chao Chao would have concealed his identity, and Su Chu wouldn't have dared to respond, let alone expose that the person in front of him was Guojia. Su Chu could only grit his teeth and say, "Brother. So let me ask you, what do you think of Guojia in the military camp?" Although Su Chu is crude, he also knows how to divert attention. Su Chu specifically asked Guojia about his character, hoping to hear criticism of Guojia from Lin Juefei's mouth and alleviate his inner dissatisfaction. Guojia and Chao Chao immediately widened their eyes and said, "Is this young man truly talented, or is it just a small onion disguised as garlic?" This question is the touchstone, which can clearly test the authenticity of the young man's talent and learning. Upon hearing Guojia, Lin Juefei felt as if he had opened a trap. Guojia, as a leader of the Chao family's think tank, has a meticulous mind, a boundless imagination, and strategic planning. He can win thousands of miles away. With this one person, he can win 1,000,000 strong soldiers. Su Chu had become accustomed to Lin Juefei's way of evaluating people. Lin Juefei always spoke of his strengths first, followed by a major turning point of 360 degrees. "But, Brother Lin, hurry up and continue," Su Chu asked urgently in his heart. He had already heard about Guojia's strengths millions of times. But Su Chu didn't admit it and didn't appreciate Guojia's strengths. Now Su Chu wants to know how Lin Juefei slapped Guojia. Cao Cao, who was standing beside him, was very satisfied when he heard Lin Juefei's evaluation. In the think tank of the camp army, Guojia naturally ranks first, and Cao Cao is still aware of Guojia's advantages. But the young man in front of him was in the kitchen, and he knew so well, which was truly amazing. Looking at Su Chu's anxious expression, Lin Juefei naturally guessed in his heart, old Su must have been bullied by the military strategist Guojia on ordinary days. After all, a small chief clerk is the lowest official position in the camp army. It's as simple as pinching an ant to bully a small chief clerk. Lin Juefei, relying solely on his friendship of drinking with Su Chu in recent days, naturally wanted to help old Su save some face. But Guojia has a great talent for governing the world, able to control his own brain but not his lower body. It is said that at the military camp's song dance party, Guojia indulged in alcohol and lust, and fought against the singer for 300 rounds. If Guojia continued to indulge, his life would be thin. Since ancient times, beauties have been unlucky, and the heavens have always envied talents. It was Guojia who was talking about it. Lin Juefei sighed and said. Su Chu was very satisfied with Lin Juefei's comments and looked happily at Guojia, saying, Guojia is just a person who drinks heavily and has sex. He must be a short-lived ghost. Guojia was extremely shocked in her heart. The little cook's evaluation of her was so precise, and the most surprising thing was that her absurd behavior with her singer had also gained widespread fame. Being criticized by a little kid in public, Lao Guo naturally felt extremely embarrassed. Chapter 9. Liu Bei Lies on the Gun. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Before the emergence of Lin Juefei, Cao Cao's love for Guojia far exceeded that of anyone else. Especially Cao Cao and Guojia can be described as passionate, wearing the same pants and eating the same bowl of rice, almost sleeping on different beds. Upon hearing Lin Juefei describe Guojia in this way, Cao Cao couldn't bear to let his good friend's reputation be short-lived. Old Guo, he said earnestly, a knife is on the tip of the letter, say. But you have seen Guojia's lesson from the past, don't learn from him. Think carefully and take care of your body. Cao Cao's sincere words made Guojia's face even more uneasy, and he suddenly felt a sense of cherishing his life. Su Chu continued to add fire and laughed, Brother Lin, what you said is very correct. If Guojia continues to indulge in alcohol and sex, he must be a short-lived ghost. Guojia's heart had already exploded, and he responded nonchalantly, being promiscuous is a man's nature, and not being promiscuous is wasting his youth. Occasionally having a 7-time romantic relationship overnight is not too excessive, and conclusions should not be too arbitrary. Lin Juefei doesn't want to continue arguing. After all, the questions are what you want to ask, not what I have to say myself. There are no two identical leaves in the world, and everything is destined to be fine. For example, Su Chu can only be used to attack the enemy and destroy the city. What about Guojia? It can only be used to make decisions on the battlefield and strategize. I'm just commenting, and nothing can change. Cao Cao sipped his wine and watched, laughing uncontrollably. Lin Juefei directly humiliated the two with one sentence. Su Chu and Guojia looked at each other with eyes that seemed to say, why are we here? What are we doing here? Are we here to be abused? And we're still in groups to be abused. But seeing Cao Cao's sly smile on their face, the two of them dared not erupt. After all, when the emperor became angry and lay 1,000,000 corpses, it angered Cao Cao, and neither of them had any good fruit to eat. Come on, everyone, hurry up and drink. Don't discuss those high-ranking officials anymore, let's continue drinking. Lin Juefei picked up his glass and said cheerfully. Lin Juefei evaluated Su Chu and Guojia separately, analyzing them with reason and evidence, and even describing their determination clearly. Amidst the intertwining of toasts, Cao Cao's heart stirred up a ripple. Cao Cao also wants to have a clearer understanding of himself, even if it's to know which aspects of himself are more suitable for pretending to be forced. Cao Cao hesitated to speak and touched his old face, sighing in his heart, "It's better not to embarrass yourself." Lin Juefei, with a big twist in his tone, can make himself unable to stand the stage. It's better to be cautious. Since he couldn't talk about himself, Cao Cao suddenly remembered someone, Liu Bei. I don't know how to deal with Liu Bei anyway. Since Lin Juefei has such unique and comprehensive views on others, let Lin Juefei analyze Liu Bei and let me better deal with the big-ear thief. Cao Cao quickly stirred up his little abacus and pondered. Brother Lin, do you know Liu Bei? How do you evaluate Liu Bei? Cao Cao made up his mind and directly threw the question to Lin Juefei. Su Chu drank the wine so painfully that he muttered to himself, "Why are you starting to talk about these people again? What happened today, my lord? Are you here to check everyone's files?" Fortunately, Lin Juefei's best subject before his time traveling was history. This also allows Lin Juefei to always be able to hit the nail on the head when analyzing wealthy figures in chaotic times. Upon hearing the name Liu Bei, Lin Juefei immediately became interested. Lin Juefei rolled up his sleeves and said, "As one of the warlords in this chaotic era, Liu Bei naturally received everyone's attention. Liu Bei is a cunning and treacherous person. If you ask me, my lord must be on guard against him. He is one of my strongest opponents in the future." Lin Juefei pursed his lips and rolled his sleeves, saying directly. Three people were shocked to hear Lin Juefei's evaluation of Liu Bei. Is Liu Bei so powerful? If it were other shrimp soldiers, crab generals, or ordinary people who evaluated Liu Bei like this, then everyone would listen to it from one ear to the other. But this evaluation comes from Lin Juefei. Who is Lin Juefei? Lin Juefei was the primary contributor to the flooding of Shepi City, and the entire think tank in the military camp was at a loss. When Lin Juefei flooded Shepi City with a single move, it was easily dealt with. Liu Bei is already at the end of his life, can he still have a day to turn over? Su Chu asked in confusion. Cao Cao's alcohol strength quickly subsided, which perfectly matched his taste. Cao Cao also really wants to know how Liu Bei became his main opponent. Lin Juefei continued his analysis and said, "Firstly, Liu Bei claims to be a descendant of the imperial family and a descendant of King Jing of Zhongshan. Although the imperial family has declined, it is still a legitimate facade in times of chaos. Liu Bei has the royal family card in his hand, which can naturally attract famous officials and tiger generals from all over the world to serve him. Secondly, Liu Bei's current organizational structure has obvious flaws. Although he has two powerful generals, Zhang Fei and Guan Yu, he lacks a qualified military commander. If one day Liu Bei gets a good military commander, it will be like adding wings to a tiger. At that time, Liu Bei will definitely become the main opponent of the Lord." When it came to military strategists, Cao Cao glanced at his beloved Guojiao. The role of military commanders in the military can exponentially increase the combat effectiveness of the army. It was with the support of Guojia, Sun Yu, and others that Cao Cao himself gradually developed to today's scale. Fortunately, Liu Bei is not here at this moment. Whenever Liu Bei hears that his value has been raised to the same level as Cao Cao by Lin Juefei, Liu Bei must have been so angry that he stomped his feet and probably joined forces with Guan Yu and Zhang Fei to fight against Lin Juefei. Feeling heartbroken, Liu Bei was also shot while lying down. Lin Juefei continued, "Thirdly, Duke Chao now holds the power of the great Han dynasty and threatens the emperor to command the feudal lords. However, the emperor is not a 3-year-old child, so how could he easily be controlled by the lord? Once Liu Bei arrives in Xuchang, the emperor Liu Xia will definitely find ways to join forces with Liu Bei, relieve Cao Gong's control over the emperor, and even execute Cao Cao. The speaker has no intention, the listener has intention." Su Chu naturally did not understand the strategic role of the emperor in Cao Cao. But Cao Cao had already started pinching his thighs, trembling with fear and facing a great enemy. He was so careful that he could still make such a big mistake. As Lin Juefei said, once Liu Bei arrives in Xuchang, if the emperor wants to break free from control, he will definitely seek Liu Bei's help. After all, Liu Bei is known as the Prince Jing of Zhongshan and has a certain degree of kinship with the emperor in terms of identity. Cao Cao never expected that the young man's gaze in front of him would be so sharp, and his vision would be so profound. Everyone's attention is focused on whether to kill Liu Bei or not, whether Liu Bei has ambition, and whether he has the ability. But no one can associate the relationship between the emperor and Liu Bei, except for the genius Lin Juefei in front of him. Chapter 10. Tianji Elderly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cao Cao began to think about the past. I remember when eunuchs were in chaos and led Dong Zhuo into the house. The courtiers were at a loss and allowed Dong Zhuo to control the court, persecuting civil and military officials. Finally, Cao Cao volunteered to assassinate Dong Zhuo. If Liu Bei arrived in Xuchang and followed his own assassination route back then, wouldn't he be like Dong Zhuo? Can my life still be stable? Alternatively, the emperor could secretly pass an edict to Liu Bei, inviting various feudal lords to assist him. At that time, his identity would become like that of Dong Zhuo, becoming a villain that everyone should punish. Cao Cao had lingering palpitations in his heart, and the more he thought, the more afraid he became. Fortunately, the heavens arranged for this young man to help me, otherwise he would have been sold and still counting money for others. Brother Lin, listening to your words is better than reading for 10 years, Cao Cao sighed, and the sweat on his forehead stopped seeping out. Cao Cao quickly clinked a cup with Lin Juefei to exchange a cup. Brother, you are really a divine operator. Are you a secret disciple of Tianji Laozi? Tianji old man. Lin Juefei thought he was inexperienced, but a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pretend was right in front of him. Lin Juefei said bluntly, Tianji old man, also known as Geguzi, is the most legendary among his beloved disciples, Sun Bin and Pang Wan. My master often instructed me to be low-key no matter how advanced my knowledge is. I was originally cultured in this secluded kitchen, and if it weren't for my shallow friendship with the older brothers, I would have always been low-key. Cao Cao and Guojia's eyes almost burst out, and it has been rumored since ancient times that the cultivators have all hidden in the market. Cao Cao originally thought that Lin Juefei was just a hermit expert, but he never expected that Lin Juefei had a great relationship with Tianji old man. Brother Lin, this Tianji old man is a legendary figure of the spring and autumn period and the warring states period. Even if you start counting in your mother's womb, you can't see the Tianji old man from hundreds of years ago. Guo Jinao's circuit was already tied, half believing and half doubting. Lin Juefei said slowly, Old Guo, you don't understand this anymore. Tianji old man has the method of cultivating oneself and increasing lifespan. Of course, you don't understand it like ordinary people do. I can't scare you to death. Lin Juefei chuckled inwardly. Cao Cao was frightened and said, Is it the art of immortality? At this moment, the two of them looked bewildered and admired each other immensely. I've made a lot of money this time. Since Lin Juefei is the disciple of Tianji old man, he not only has unparalleled talent in governing the country, but also may have mastered Tianji old man's art of immortality. Cao Cao warned himself at this moment, you must never show your horse's feet, and you must not scare away this extraordinary talent in front of you. Let's continue. Where did we just talk about? Lin Juefei will pretend to finish perfectly. After all, a lie needs to be covered up with countless lies, and even if the venue is too large, it may not be easy to end. Okay. Good brother, let's continue talking about Liu Bei. Cao Cao regained his excited mood and looked at Lin Juefei's tall figure before him, quickly saying. Guojia beside him was very clear. Cao Cao wanted to kill Liu Bei in his heart, but unfortunately he couldn't find a good excuse. The military camp meeting has been held multiple times, and everyone has not come up with a good solution. Because even though Liu Bei is very annoying and has the potential to pose a terrifying threat to Cao Cao, he has the bloodline after the Prince Jing of Zhongshan, with a halo of benevolence and righteousness, which is really difficult to deal with. Brother Lin, since Liu Bei is a royal and noble family, as well as a terrible enemy, what should we do? Because if we kill Liu Bei now, the whole world will definitely condemn him with words and will fall for the Lord's injustice. In times of chaos, the adopted son will take the lead. Lin Juefei chuckled and said, "It's very easy to kill Liu Bei. Liu Bei is now in Cao Cao's hands. Will Cao Gong still be afraid of the cooked duck flying?" "Why is it very simple?" Gu Jia quickly asked. Cao Cao had discussed several ways to deal with Liu Bei, but Sun Yu, Qing Yu, and others were at a loss. Gu Jia closely asked, "How can we kill Liu Bei so that people around the world won't speak ill of the Lord behind his back?" There is naturally a think tank in Cao Gong's camp to handle these military affairs. Lao Gua and Lao Chao, let's worry about what he does. Lin Juefei was also drunk, and these two brothers don't drink and ask themselves a bunch of questions every day. No. Brother, you must tell us this method, Cao Cao asked excitedly. The group of think tanks in the military camp had been discussing for so many days, and there was no one they liked. Gu Jia quickly took Lin Juefei's hand and said, "Brother, please do us a favor and tell us the method to kill Liu Bei." "Yeah. After all, we are in the Cao camp. If we know more ways to deal with the enemy, we can naturally have more ways to survive." In the barracks kitchen, 3 main leaders of the Cao battalion gathered around a young man, all eagerly looking at the young man in front of them, without any trace of the majesty of the Cao battalion leader. Lin Juefei doesn't like this kind of scene. Surrounded by 3 old men, the scene was like a fly circling around. Fortunately, after drinking several pots of wine today, Lin Juefei's eyes were a bit hazy. If he were sober on weekdays, this moment would definitely be enough for Lin Juefei to feel nauseous for 3 months. In order to quickly break free from the situation in front of him, Lin Juefei had to continue with a bitter smile, "If you want to kill Liu Bei, you can borrow someone else's hand. There is no need for Cao Gong to take action, and naturally you will not be subjected to the verbal and written punishment of scholars from all over the world." Borrowing someone else's hand. Cao Cao and Su Chu asked at the same time. Gu Jia immediately pondered Lin Juefei's words in his mind, how to borrow someone else's hand. Whoever's hand should be borrowed, Liu Bei is currently in Cao Cao's hands. No matter whose hand is borrowed to kill, they are all Cao Cao's men and horses. Naturally, they cannot hide the truth and will eventually be implicated by Cao Cao. Su Chu said, "Brother, are you saying you're sending assassins to kill Liu Bei?" Lin Juefei shook his head and said, "Sending an assassin to kill Liu Bei is not a waste of his life. There are 2 tiger generals with explosive force around Liu Bei. No matter who acts as an assassin to kill Liu Bei, they are all going to send someone's head." What exactly does this sentence mean, brother? Su Chu couldn't recall it in his mind. At first, Gu Jia wanted to compete with Lin Juefei, as he couldn't think of a way to kill Liu Bei. Lin Juefei proposed a strategy of borrowing a knife to kill, and Gu Jiazi believed that his identity in the Cao camp could naturally see this strategy. However, Gu Jia racked his brains and tried every means possible, but he didn't know how to borrow a knife to kill. Lin Juefei saw that everyone's faces were covered in paste, and none of them had any ideas. He continued to remind him, "You can borrow the sword of the emperor to kill someone." Borrowing the sword of the emperor, whether it was Cao Cao or Gu Jia, let alone Su Chu, the 3 of them had no idea how to borrow the sword of the emperor. Su Zhu still looked puzzled. If this emperor had the opportunity, he would definitely unite with Liu Bei to resist Cao Cao. After all, the enemy of the enemy is his own friend. Since they are friends, how can they use the emperor's sword to kill Liu Bei? Lin Juefa was still confused when he saw the expressions on the three of them, and said angrily, "It's just that your three positions are too low. They're just the chief clerk, and so on. Naturally, they don't understand the mystery behind this.